thank you for joining us. So I will do the intro as Harry's having issues. There's myself, I'm the business development manager. This is not a sales exercise. We're not going to be speaking about any product or leaning you towards any product. This is genuinely what I've seen in the marketplace. I'm also joined by Harry. Unfortunately, he's having some microphone issues here, but no problems at all. We'll get through this. I've been doing this for about 15 years. I've been working in unified portals. I worked with an organization that was doing a very complex system. And along that way in the last 15 years around structured content, I've seen a whole number of issues that keep reappearing in these unified portal projects. So what I hope to do today is to provide an overview of these issues and how you can avoid them. And I hope this is very helpful. So on to the next slide, Harry. So the aim of this today, I think, is to provide you with this overview. We're going to give you the 5 main areas I've seen and how to avoid these obstacles. But what I'd also keep in mind are common themes is lack of resources, insufficient understanding of user needs, and failure to communicate the value to decision makers, as it says there, are 3 core areas to really watch out for when you're running projects of this nature. We're talking here about projects that can be in a vastly different scope in terms of complexity. You might just have a few hundred PDFs that you need to apply a bit more metadata to. But conversely, you might have tens, 20s, hundreds of thousands of assets from multiple repositories that you need to bring together. But the key of all of this is that these 5 areas should help you no matter what project you're doing. Next slide, please, Harry. So first of all, a definition. We're not just talking about a portal here that's dealing with one source of information. Here it's defining it really well, I think. It's bringing together all the information services in a single location. Why? Because that's really going to help your users. If they can go to a single area and get their question answered, that's really going to be a powerful, not only for your brand, but also it should reduce costs. And the big thing to recognize, especially when we're dealing with more complex products, is that smart people want to self-serve. They don't want to phone your customer service. They don't want to have to send a load of emails that cost you a lot of money. So the more you can facilitate this, the better it's going to be for your brand and the more you're going to lower costs. Next slide. So the 5 core foundations for successful unified portals are, number 1, C-suite support. Number 2, costs. Number 3, rapid deployment time. Number 4, integration and migration. And number 5, ease of admin. So we'll go into each of these areas and what's going on here. So lack of C-suite support. C-suite support is vital to proceed. You must clearly articulate the benefits to the board and get their support in the following ways. So next piece. It's also a good idea. We are sponsored today by an organization called CIDM, and organizations like this are really, really useful in a number of areas. But one of the core areas in these portals is to really help you with your content strategy and IA strategies. The reason why I say that is that this is a specialized skill set and it's rarely available internally. And without that foundation, you're liable to get issues. The nice thing about some of the more modern portal technologies is that you can make changes quite quickly. But still, having a foundation, especially in more complex scenarios, is really crucial. And I would definitely recommend, if only in this area, to get outside assistance and engage with them before you start really kind of communicating to the board what a project of this nature looks like. Next point. So it's really important to clearly define and communicate the budget requirement and resource requirement. And the resources might also be internal. A number of things that I've seen in these projects is that the team have done a good job of actually estimating what they need for external, so the software, and we'll go on about external costs in a minute. But they failed to actually pencil out the internal resource requirements. How much of someone's time do you need? How long is that going to be needed? What kind of skill set have they got that you can bring into the project? Or are you going to have to seek outside help in doing some of these initiatives? There's usually a balance of both. One core thing to watch out for is when you're doing, especially like integration of different systems, remember that your team knows these systems. So whether that be your internal SharePoint or your Confluence or your PDF stack, they know about it, they know about the structures, and they're going to be very useful when bringing it in because they understand what those repositories are and how they work. So next piece. Not only do these, and this is really vital, not only does these support documentation strategy deliver a better documentation delivery, but there's two things. One that's come up in the marketplace recently, and I'm not hearing a lot about this, and it's really, really important. These initiatives become a foundation for AI-based support projects. And let me explain that briefly why. The reason for this is that if you're taking all of your content from disparate systems, you're putting them together and you're putting metadata over these systems, that's going to give AI a repository in which it can use to build intelligent AI support initiatives. So while people are doing a lot of AI readiness and a lot of consulting, what they're not considering is how do they provide this singular repository which can be indexed for AI projects. And this is how you do it. You don't only get a unified portal, but you're also going to get a foundation for these types of projects. The other thing to remember is that this is a vital pre-sales tool. So this is not going to be facilitated by a chatbot, an AI chatbot, or those types of things. Having a portal with all of your information, especially if you're making this public, if you've got a very technical sale out there, they will access this more than your marketing site. It's been proven time and time again by numerous organizations that when they deploy these types of portals, that it becomes a massive assistance to their pre-sales. Next slide, please, Harry. Costs. As we've mentioned, gain a complete understanding of all costs. The costs are in three main areas to outline. So you've got your services. We've mentioned some there of like content strategy. You also might have some content migration services. You might be doing these internally, externally. Still map them out. If internal resources, map that out as a cost when you go to your C-suite to ask for this. Then if it's an external tool that's cloud-based, well, you don't have to worry about the hosting. If it's not, if it's either a traditional application or an application that you've already got, remember you've got a hosting cost. Remember that this might be attracting a lot of traffic. So how are you going to make sure that this is load balanced correctly, etc., because the performance of this is really crucial. And then if you're buying any additional software, you need to account for that as well. And that can include if you want to transform any content and start writing it in new systems, if you need to buy a new portal application, any of those types of software costs, you need to write those out as well. If you get those three areas down and clearly articulate it, you're going to get those nicely done. So next slide, please, Harry. Complex integration and migration. This is the hardest area. So be careful and make sure you map this out. So first point on this, please. So you've got a load of disparate systems 9 times out of 10, and making this into a cohesive unit is challenging. And what not to do is not to be aggressive about your timelines here. Be conservative, because there are things that might happen in your content. They might not be technical challenges that might make it difficult to bring this content in. And this is tricky stuff. Next point. This can lead to project delays or cancellations. Obviously, we don't want to cancel project. So if you're conservative and you communicate this well to the board, that this is an area where you might get delays, or you're going to have a phased delivery because you're concerned about one content source being more complex and you want to have a quick delivery, and phased delivery is definitely something we recommend in more advanced projects, then make sure that that's communicated and understood. Next point, please. Scripts need to be built to transform. Predominantly, when you're doing these unified portals, you're going to be delivering the content in XHTML. And so how are you going to do that? How are you going to build those scripts? Are you going to get support from an outside organization? Have you got the skills internally to be able to build these scripts? Why not build a few test scripts when you're going through and actually, penciling out a project of this nature? But know that you've got internal skills and consultants that can help you here. And then the important areas here. Next point, please, Harry. Talk to vendors or talk to around your internal team around their skills and approach, and make sure you test this out and do some test scripts to look at the type of skill set they've got and make sure that you can get this content in. Next point. Look at previous integrations if you're using outside organizations. Look at how they've delivered, look at the types of complexity they've delivered, and look at the types of timelines that they're talking about with this. That will really help you to communicate the type of challenge that you're going to face in this initiative. Now, also remember, if you are converting any content, and I've seen this in very big projects, remember that content that's going to be deprecated, so older versions, things that you're not going to keep around for one reason or another, keep these as PDF, because you're not going to want to create a heavy cost center here in terms of like the PDFs being like transferred over and then a year later you're going to deprecate them. The board won't support that anyway. So you really want to make sure you've got a platform that's going to handle both structured and unstructured content as your portal, because this will definitely be an ask. If you're dealing with thousands of these, this can be very expensive. Next one, Harry. User-centric design. So obviously we want to make it important to make this simple and accessible. Go around, look at some portals that you like, use those as foundations for your design, wherever they may be. Users want the information quickly and easily. What's important there? Search, 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 search. Overly complex portals are going to lead to higher call volumes. And the aim of this is to reduce your costs. That's going to be a big, big statement that you can make to the board. I can reduce costs and improve our brand recognition and our brand experience and our customer experience. Obviously, we're talking here, all the content should be in a central location. And the keys to making this experience really nice for your user is personalizing the content. This is called permissioning, obviously, and faceted search. So that means that when you do a search, you can tick through the areas on the side and have some boxes that allow you to navigate that search. So I need to want to see products that are user guides. I only want to see, content that are user guides. I only want to see products from this region. However that may be, you should have the capability to deliver that in your portal, as it will allow users to access the information and search the information very quickly and easily. Ease of admin. This is really important. Make sure that this portal technology has an admin that you're able to easily use. And the reasons for this are, next piece, Harry. Applying metadata. This is the key. This should be flexible and easy. You should have a system in which to do this. You're not going to get this right straight out of the gate. You're simply not. You're going to get so much information once you've launched a portal back to yourselves via the way in which your users are using this system, and you're going to want to tweak it. And that's not just, hey, we're going to change some colors. That's really how the content is structured. And if you've got a simple system where you can apply and enable this metadata to be applied in different ways, and it's a flexible model and easy to do, it's really going to pay huge dividends. Next piece. You need to be able to apply this at the individual and group level, and I'll explain why. If you're bringing in thousands of these assets from disparate systems and you've got to do these individually, or you've got to ask a developer to do some advanced script to put this metadata on, it's going to be a problem. If you're able to do this at a group level, you can literally take hundreds of pieces of content and link them, which the key is then that if a user does a search, they can find these assets easily. You can link it via the metadata. Now, why you need individual assets is that you're going to have certain assets that should have certain pieces of metadata because they're unique in a certain way. And again, that's going to help them to be able to find in a search. And all we're really talking about here within a portal, when you simplify it down, is how do we get the correct answer to any question that your users have got. Next piece. If deploying PDFs, which there are a ton of PDFs, we did a piece on LinkedIn earlier this year. We did a poll, and it turned out that 70 to 80% of organizations still have a good stack of PDFs. We've been talking about them in our industry going away forever. They're not going away. They're here. So if you've got them, then make sure that you've got the capability to have links to the original, so that when you update that one PDF, it's updated throughout the portal wherever it be referenced. That's hugely important, so that customers know that they're accessing the correct information, whether it's in PDF or HTML or whatever you're delivering it in within the portal. Next piece. If you've got PDFs, whatever system you're using as your portal technology, they need to be fully searchable and indexable when you're uploading them. That's for obvious reasons. So if I do a search and something's contained within a unique PDF, although that PDF doesn't have a ton of structure, at least you can find that identifying piece within the document if it's indexed when it's brought in. Next, please. And ease of importing content. You've got to be able to not only import from multiple sources in a fairly straightforward fashion and be able to write these scripts into these systems, but you've also then got to be able to figure out how to update that content as new content gets put in. And these are scripts. Your internal team will be able to do it. Whatever technology you're doing, make sure that you've defined this and you've tested it. So, okay, I can bring X, Y, and Z content in, but then let me have a look if I make some changes in this content and what effect does that have? And can I bring them in with a script and does it update that content easily? There's nothing worse than this content getting out of sync. If you start delivering content that is not correct, your users will stop accessing the system. They will lose trust in the system. And training should be hours, not weeks in these systems. If you've got a very complex training program for a portal technology, certainly some of these legacy portals that are out there, you're going to struggle because you're going to have people that shouldn't be Formula One drivers to drive this portal. And you're also probably going to have a lot of team members if you've got a more complex metaphor, and they're going to be in this system, and it should be a few hours and they're able to upload and tag their content and then go and review their content in a system, in a portal that's doing this unified challenge and delivering it. Next slide. So we'd like to also have a big thank out to our sponsors, CIDM, for supporting us here. We've actually got Trish actually on the presentation, and I'm certainly going. They've got a conference on in San Jose. So if you're starting an initiative like this is an organization that can really help you to consider some of the challenges that you've got. This conference, Convex at San Jose, is really one of the best conferences of the year. So if you have got the capability, I'll see you there April 7th to 9th. Great people. Not only is the conference great, but really you're going to meet a ton of consultants that can help you to map out this type of challenge, and CIDM can help you themselves. Also, part of this that we haven't mentioned, one of the more softer skills, is actually creating content that's compelling. And Contact run these brilliant workshops that are, and you can see there some of the ones that are coming up about actually editing and creating content and creating information that people really want to read. That's great. If you're doing one of these initiatives and you can also enhance your content, we're talking here about making sure that users are getting the ultimate experience, and workshops like this will really, really help you in your journey. So thank you for your time. The aim of this is to go through this very quickly. We don't want these long webinars with, tons of stuff that isn't required. So we hope we've got the core pieces out there. And if you've got any questions, then please feel free to type them and we will do our best to answer them.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Sorry.
Great, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was going to say, apologies all. My name's Harry. I'm the marketing coordinator here at Bluestream. I'm in control of the presentation today. Apologies, I've had a little bit of a mic issues, but I'm glad that we're back now. So, Andrew, we have a couple of questions. So from Nafis, how much potential do you think AI has in this? Like, for example, can it be a good enough tool for transforming content into XHTML?
It's not the tool that transforms the content into a XHTML. In AI, yes, you might use that for migration. It's definitely there. We're starting to see a lot of organizations, and I think it's a great question because content migration is a very expensive and time-consuming thing. So we're starting to see a number of organizations produce scripts that are certainly utilizing AI. The problem becomes, and this is something that I think is a great topic because it opens up a much bigger piece about AI. The challenge with support content is that your organization is describing and relating content that only you truly understand. So whether it's migrating content, that can help definitely, but the problem is you still need to then amend and have time to make this content useful because you need to start applying your metaphor to this. And this applies for all AI projects. If you're looking at AI, then you're really going to have to train the algorithm on how your content works. So you're going to have certain ways in which you describe things that are unique. You're certainly going to have certain ways in which you relate two pieces of content together. These basic ways in which you're building up a unified portal here will help because they're going to show those relationships. But then scripting in the content, yeah, it can help. Certainly moving, one to another, and we're starting to see that. But there's still a large piece of manual work required because that source-based content doesn't have the tags necessarily that you're going to want to use in the XHTML. So once you get it there, you then need a system to be able to very quickly apply any additional metadata that you want. But also, this is a fantastic question as well, because when you are moving your content, when you're creating those scripts, one of the main objectives of that script is any structure that you've got in your base content should be able to be ported into that XHTML, even if it's just file structure in a PDF, a list of PDFs that you've got. But ultimately, if you've got things like complements and you've done tags, then how do you get those tags out and get those recreated in the XHTML automatically? Because the aim is to minimize the work, whatever. And certainly AI can help you there. But again, go out and test some of these tools and make sure you understand the human aspect that may be required afterwards. I hope that answers your question.
That's perfect. And we had a couple of questions given to us before the presentation, which I thought were very useful and might bring a little bit more context. So the first question is, what kind of budgets do unified portal projects require?
Well, it's a good question, but it's hard to answer because it really depends on the level of challenge that an organization is facing. So it can go from a few weeks and a few $1,000s if you've got 1,000 PDFs. And these projects do exist where there's just a stack of PDFs and they need them to have some slightly better metadata so they're indexed for regional use or whatever. But it can go through to like very complex projects. So you are talking projects that could be weeks and you're talking projects that could be years. So this is why I think it's really important to map these out before you go and make the ask to the board, because what are you asking the board until you know truthfully what you're facing here? And certainly in more complex projects, I think not only is it good so that you're going to learn a lot if you have a phased approach in a very advanced project that might take 18 months, 2 years to deliver. But the reason you may want a phased approach is that you can also have that deliverable shown to the board, because the board are not going to really understand what this is about. And they're going to, as soon as they sign off, their first question is going to be, when can I see something? So if you can create that, then you can really create something great in the solution approach.
Fantastic. And last question, and it's quite a broad one. How long do unified portals take to deliver?
Well, there again, weeks to years. And some by their very nature are always ongoing. And that's not because anyone's planned anything incorrectly, but once they start using the metaphor and they start having this unified place, then they have more and more and more data. I know of one project that's currently it has multi-million dollars put into it, and it's been going for 7 years. And every year they add substantially more to it. And I've seen that at a multiple locations as well. These are really, really high-end complex projects. So they can be multiple years. But at the lower end, you can really have from 4 to 8 weeks. And I'd say a mid-level project, you should be looking at like anywhere between 3 to 6 months. If you've got a mid-level project and it's like 9 to 12 months, a mid-level to me is like 10,000 assets, 3 or 4 content repositories, that kind of feel. If that's 9 to 12 months, that to me is slightly too long. I think the board get very itchy around a project that's like that. But again, it depends on if you're using a legacy system, it's going to take a lot longer to do. If you're maybe using an open source solution that you have to do a lot more work around, then that may take longer. And again, I'm not saying it's good or bad, just keep into mind the work that you're going to do, because that's really going to affect the timelines of when you should be communicating this to your board or your project sponsor, whatever it be.
Good stuff. I'm just reading another comment from Nafis, and forgive me if it's pronounced Nafi. It's my terrible accent. Thank you for such a well thought out answer. Maybe we can employ AI to improve its interpretability as well. For example, we can fine tune specific language models on the data we have to teach it how to do that. I think that could be achievable if you have large quantities of specialized data. Now, my understanding might be somewhat limited, so throwing out the idea. Thanks again. So I think that was really more of a comment.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely valid. And I think, you know, this is not just for unified portals. I think this is really about content migration and AI. And it's definitely useful. And I think it's going to become incredibly powerful, because one of the things I said was cost. One of the highest costs is content migration. They can really run very, very, very high. And some of the things to watch out for is like a frame is very, very difficult. Markdown can be very, very difficult. The more you've got either as something that is very unique to that content structure in terms of the way it's applying its metadata, or something that's very unstructured, which again, I don't want to say good or bad, but something like Markdown and ASCII docs, they're much more unstructured. Depending on what you're looking to do and how you're looking to bring that over and what's been done in your base content in the past, it can be very, very expensive. And if you can utilize AI, absolutely. But all I would say is go out and test, you know, in every angle. You know, more advanced cases, people are using, you know, knowledge graphs also in the delivery of this types of content. You can really go way, way further. There's some great content out there about utilizing AI in a number of ways in what I will call AI support delivery, and investigate them all. This is not saying they're either good or bad. If you can do anything to help you, then it's going to be fantastic.
Great stuff. I think that brings us to the end of our presentation, everyone. I think it's on perfect timing as well. Just to say again, thank you to all that have come along and produced the questions.
Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we hope to see you again at the next one. Thanks very much and have a good one. Cheers, guys.